Welcome everybody to the September Westbank Real Estate Investors Meetup. So I'm excited about the guest tonight. So I want to get started because I got a lot to ask. I haven't seen you in a long time. Good to see you again.
Likewise, likewise.
Yep. So quick introduction. So I got into the business about 2014. You came down after Katrina.
So yes, for us it was 2007.
Okay, so at least going on almost 10 years, we've been exchanging and doing business together for sure. So
That's about right.
definitely highly respected. I'm glad you came out tonight. We got a lot to talk about. I still might need you to pronounce your last name.
It's all good. No
yeah.
subtitles, so everybody gotta bear with me. My name is Machi Medrzycki.
Yep. So construction, general construction, commercial construction, real estate developer, super impressive rental portfolio. So that's what we want to get into today. So right now, I want everybody to put your hands together for Machi
Medrzycki.
Medrzycki. So the question we start off with everybody, Machi, is how did you even get into real estate?
So that's a great question. I was always very skilled with my hands, and I was very interested with architecture. And since a little kid, I was playing with Legos, building stuff out of wood, and all different type of modeling. So I always had a very natural gift of constructing. And when I came to this country in 2002, I started with construction itself, and I by choice, not by necessity. I actually wanted to learn it. I wanted to know it, and I was very fortunate to have a really, really good mentor, gentleman by name PJ, and he taught me a lot by everything. He didn't teach me anything in specific by one trade, but we get to work in a lot of custom work back in Orlando and Daytona Beach, Florida areas, a lot of condos, a lot of high-end neighborhoods. So we did custom bathrooms, custom kitchens, entertainment centers, which was very exciting because it showed, right? Like people buy with their eyes. So I get to experience a viewpoint from the homeowner perspective, what they really and truly enjoy and what they like and what they really spending money on. So through the years, Katrina happened. I was moved from Florida to New Orleans with the investors that started buying houses. And literally they told me, hey, this is the batch of houses, go. I didn't know much about that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn it real quick. And I made a lot of mistakes. And the good news is I was young enough to where mistakes didn't hinder my performance. They actually taught me real quick a life lesson in business. We turned a lot of houses on construction level, right? So we build a pipeline and we schedule different subcontractors. I oversee and manage a lot of it. I work with them along them really, help them out, did a lot of deliveries, and we turned about 10 houses a month. And that was a massive undertaking. We did it for about 7 months. These guys went under because they didn't necessarily balance their budget on the investment side of it, which I didn't know anything about it. However, as I was watching them, what they were doing, I learned a lot. And then that was 2006, 2007. And then in 2008, I was introduced to a very nice lady, Tina. She got married to a very good friend of mine. And she was like, look, we got a lot of apartments. One of them was Esplanade, the City Park building, which probably everybody's seen. We got about 130 units to renovate. Would you like to do it? So I'm like, sure, we'll do it. So we knocked that out of the park. And that was for the investor from New York. So I get to learn how apartment business works from the investment side, but just by doing construction. So we did several apartment complexes. We did Castlebrook in Baton Rouge. We did Diamond Lakes in Lafayette, Palm Isle in Biloxi. We renovated a bunch of those buildings, not in full, but there was a batches of 80, 120, 200 units. And along those lines, in 2007, I decided that I'm going to do a flip, actually two of them, in Chalmette. And
By yourself on your own.
on my own, yeah. And I was working. I was actually doing the tile and doing stuff while managing 5, 7, 10 buildings at the time. And we didn't make very much money. It was kind of like, on the end of it, we sold them, and I was like, that's not worth me doing it, right? Now, I didn't think and factor in that I paid myself along the way. So I was like, yeah, it actually worked out. But dude, we made like, I don't know, $3,000 on each one of those houses back in 2007. I said, man, that does not work. So I focused more on construction at that time. but I was still very interested in the investing aspect of things. And when I was growing up back in Poland, the biggest name, and please don't judge me, was Donald Trump, right? So non-political, it's purely real estate. So I was always interested because it's America, it's a land of opportunity. Like you can do whatever you want. So I was very drawn to that. So I read some books and you know paralyzed a little, didn't know where to start, what to do. Typical. Made those couple of deals, made very little money, learned a lot. Stopped it for a moment, and then in 2010, maybe the end of 2009, as I had my couple of first rentals, um, I moved them over to a very good friend of mine, long-term friend, JC Register. He managed those properties for me, and as he was managing, I was utilizing part of his office. That was my office. And he approached me and said, hey, how about we're going to do a deal together? I'm like, sure. So we researched the deal that was back on Eastern in Gentilly. And I put the budgets together. And he said, okay, let's do it. This is the ARV. This is going to be the budget. This is how much we're going to buy it for. And we did it. And we did it very well. So I was like, okay, that works. Now we can, I remember we made like $35,000, and I'm like, holy shit, that's a lot of money.
2,000, yeah.
So we started buying. Well, the inventory of something that was actually worth doing and doing it quickly was kind of scarce, and we decided, how about we're gonna try new construction? So we bought a first lot that was on Bassage in Gentilly, and there was no new construction in Gentilly at that time at all. And I remember, so I was scared shitless. I mean, I was so scared. I was like, man, I never done new construction. I'm like, what do we do right here? So I was like,
So
okay,
what year is this?
2011, maybe beginning of 2012.
So we after Katrina, there's still a lot of lots in Gentilly right now.
A lot of lots. 18 grand, 12 grand, 24. I mean, those numbers don't even exist
Right.
anywhere, right? So we bought the first one. We stuck the building on it. I did a lot of designing, which is, I like architecture, so I'm like, I'm going to do a lot of designing. And we delivered the project, and the first showing, the couple came through. I wasn't there. The comment was, this building is pretentious. Like belongs in Lakeview. I'm like, what the hell? What kind of comment is that? I mean, it looks great, So nobody was really accustomed to seeing that in Gentilly. So I'm like, man, we're gonna do it again. So we sold it, we made some money. Didn't make as much from the first deal, but I'm like, man, that's so much easier. It's new, right? Like there's nothing that you have to deal with. There is no existing condition, no plumbing problems, no electrical issues. You don't open up the wall and have a termite damage. So I'm like, we're just gonna do that.
Yeah.
So we bought another lot. And by this time, we utilized the floor plan from a lot A on Bassage, and we said, okay, those are the improvements we need to do. We're going to stick with lot B. So we did that, scaled back on the finishes, so no more pretentious comments, which saved us money. So I'm like, okay, we sold it like in 3 days. It was a lot of money. We're like making like almost 40 grand. So I'm like, that's great. Now we're going to buy every light in the city, right? So that's what we did. We bought and we probably built like 50 plus homes in Gentilly. So that was a lot of fun, about 5 years. And then all the prices went skyrocketing, and everybody started buying in Gentilly. I'm like, okay, I'm exiting. I'm done.
Yeah.
So we went to Lakeview, bought a couple of, since I like architecture and like the finishes, so I'm like, okay, we're going to go and buy something a little bit more expensive, have more budgets to spend and get more money into the building and show it off. So that's what we did. And, kind of spaced out in the city a little bit more, went to Uptown and kind of start building and building and building.
Yeah. So I want to go back a little bit when you talked about you moved your rentals over to JC. How were you funding those? So you're a full-time contractor. What did finding and funding purchases look like while you were still working? It was all savings, or what did that look like?
That's a great question. Back then, the money was super easy, right? That was before, like 2007, that was before the financial crash. So hard money was like, you're just going to sign, stated income. Here's the money. So it's not a problem, right? The interest rates were high. I don't remember exactly what it was, but we're not cheap. But it was easy to get the money, right? 2008, going forward, it was really difficult because the world collapsed, right? Like the real estate crashed. There was nobody to borrow the money from. So that's when we started utilizing cash. And that was a challenge, but we went to the banks and it's like, hey, we looking into real estate in 2009, 10, 11. And like, you out of your mind, get out of here. Right? Where are you from? What's your name? Okay, you're weird. So yeah. So it took us a lot, right? And some of them is like, oh, we want to see your offices. I'm like, offices? Like I got one room right there to do my paperwork, right? So that was kind of funny, but there was another really good friend of mine, Jeff Ellinger from First Bank and Trust at the time. He was a loan officer, and now he's like a regional, full state, not wide president for Bank Plus because they got acquired. And he's like, dude, I'm gonna take a chance on you. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna be disappointed. I'm
Yeah.
so loyal, like a dog. Like I will never leave you. So yeah, it's that's what we did, and he funded a lot of our projects. And yes, in the interim, we use a lot of cash, right? So we had to use our own personal cash. So the beauty of it is, I'm from Poland, okay? The way we being brought up is you don't spend anything on anything. Like everything that you make, you just put it away in a pillow somewhere under the mattress, and you just don't spend it. Okay, so I'm a little frugal. Not okay. I was a little frugal. I'm gonna say it like that. So I had like a stashed cash to
So most of the rentals that you had back then was from when the money was easy.
yeah.
Okay. And then you handed those over to JC. And from there, how did that snowball come? You mentioned 50 deals coming all at once. That was all bank or cash or profits that y'all rolled into. Where did that cash come
It
from?
was across years, right? So you're looking at 4 or 5 year stretch, and then we had some flips in the meantime. But yes, it was a lot of it bank financing. So these guys will come in and give you 100% of your construction cost because you bring a lot of cash, right? So that was the way we structured the deals. And by the way, that's why I met Josh Wilson. It was way back with JT
Back then?
2007, 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Friend, long time.
you mentioned that other company went under because they didn't balance the budgets. What did you learn from them that you implement in your business now to make sure you don't go under?
Same thing as I learned from my parents. Don't spend the freaking money.
Okay.
Save it. No, realistically, they balance their budget based on Florida, right? Florida is very different. Florida is very structured. When you go to Florida, I'm sure everybody been to Florida. It's a subdivision, 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 subdivision. So it's really easy to balance the
cutter.
budget because it's like, okay, this house is exactly the same as the 3 houses down the road. So you look at the same thing over and over. In city of New Orleans, it's massive marbling, right? Like you go between the streets, between the blocks. I mean, that can be $100,000 property, and the block over it's $750,000 property. So you really have to do your underwriting well and understand what you're getting yourself into. I learned that real quick on their mistakes. If they came in with a Florida attitude, then that would put them under.
So now I know where your frugality came from. It came from your parents. Because personally, every time I put out a deal and I would say, we got multiple offers, is this your highest and best? Your answer is always yes. You never went up. So where did you get that approach, and why do you think that your offers are sometimes less competitive than others?
So I'm a very disciplined person, right? So any advice I can give to anybody, I talk to individuals, I talk to people like you in this room, and I thank you very much for you coming today, is always like find your routine, right? Like everybody got a routine. I hope. Like my routine is I wake up every single morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's my routine. I go do my stuff. I go work out. I go about my day by 7 a.m. I'm so ready that everybody wakes up in the company. I'm ready to do way above and beyond because I already am through my email, through my to-dos. I'm like, I can wrap up my day if I want to. So anything I do from 7 a.m. minus breakfast for my kids and family time. Anything I do is a one more, right? I do one more thing. So I always build on my foundation and I always do more than anybody else. And I always, like for my staff, I always get to, it's so hard to keep up with you, but I'm trying, right? Something I'm not, you don't have to be like me. I don't wish anybody to be like me because that's like, it's pretty rigid, right? I'm not very flexible.
Yeah.
But the routine and the discipline, it what allows me to tell you, I don't want your property. No, it's based on numbers, right? So for me, again, when I'm looking at the property, I'm looking at it from very technical aspect. Like I'm looking at it as a contractor first. So for me, when I'm delivering a project to a customer, to a client, it's a, let's say in the construction world, it's got to be from the foundation to the last doorstop. It has to be exactly right. So I have to have a plumbing, I have to have a foundation, I have to have electrical systems, I have to have a HVAC, I have to have insulation, framing, and you go through the schedule of values right here, right? Schedule of construction. I'm looking at it the same way. I'm not going to jeopardize any of those aspects when I'm underwriting the deal. Because on the end of the day, you guys going to go through home inspections. And yes, it looks great. You invested a lot of money in your cabinets and countertops and backsplash and whatever looks pretty and sells. I'm not taking that away, taking out of equation because that's very important. But you go through inspection and you got a broken underslab pipes, or you have a service panel that needs to be replaced, or you have, I don't know, HVAC that is on the last leg. Those are problematic items, and buyers will come in and they say, well, take your property and she fires on the bed. I'm like, I don't want it. Like, keep it. You don't want to be in that position because you're carrying costs. It gets increased. It gets put back on the market. It went from pending to back on the market. It looks odd. You know, what's wrong with the property? That's the first question mark in the buyer's mind. So I like to underwrite it on the construction level first and then from the investment.
So I'm glad you said that. So on the construction side, when it's your flips, are you still paying yourself as the contractor, or are you doing it at cost?
That's a great question. So the beauty of what we do is, right, we have a construction companies that have project managers, assistants, and interior designers, right? We have architects. So for us, it's easy to say, okay, look, we're just gonna slide this one in, you work on it, right? So we do that a lot. I factor in my overhead though, right?
Okay.
Like I have to, because obviously these guys are getting paid. So it's percentage based. So if we got, let's say 10 projects in the books, it's a percentage base. So whatever sliver of percentage of their time goes into our project of internally initiated project, like a flip or a spec, we just appropriate some amount of money into the balance sheet. So we know we're not losing money on those phantom expenses, right? That some people forget to put in. And it's common when you have a smaller flippers and they do some work themselves.
Yeah.
They don't pay themselves. Like I did a tile. Oh, great. I made $50,000 on the end of it. Well, did you pay yourself for that tile that you did?
Oh, no.
All right. So you're not balancing the budget, because when you grow and you're gonna have 2 or 3, 4, 5 of those, you can't do tile on 5 projects. Something's gonna give, right? You cannot manage it, you cannot oversee it, something is gonna fall between the cracks. So all of a sudden you have to hire the tile guy and your balance budget results.
Yeah. So with that type of discipline, what is your approach with still cash flow management, right? So that's a lot of cash being turned over between the purchase, the renovation, the holding costs. What does your team look like to make sure the cash flow is in place?
So that's a great question, but it's very it's a multi-layer answer, right? Because when you are starting off, it's much more difficult for you, right? You got to get a loan. That's already, it's like, okay, this is the first deal. Every bank is gonna, especially today again, you're gonna look at this and it's like, well, we never done it before. So we want to have a security, right? So we're gonna give you 75% LTV, but you have to, give us the numbers, and you artificially lowering the numbers because you're trying to make the deal happen. And like there's a ways of fudging the numbers on a flipper side, which is not a good scenario. But when we started, we came with the real numbers, right? So the first deal is always going to be the most challenging, because you're putting a lot of cash out. Even if you're getting a loan, you have to carry until you get a draw. So you have to have some cash. That's where frugality and under the pillow dollars come in, right? Or you can get partners, and that's what I would suggest anybody. Like if you're doing the first deal, second deal, and you want to grow, get yourself a partner, somebody that has experience and cash to deploy, right? Like for example, our problem right now today is not the deal. I mean, it's not a cash flow; it's a deal flow, right? Like we struggling for deals that I can deploy the cash to, right? So I have a different problem. Never do it. It's a problem. So when you're starting off, you're gonna have not a problem. So there is a lot of cash out there. So you just need to know how to tap into it.
Right. And what is the partnership? What's some examples of how a partnership can look on a split? So if you are the contractor, and the other person is strictly the money person, what's an example of how to even approach negotiating a split on a partnership in development?
So I personally like brokers, real estate brokers, because what they can deliver is they can remove their fees, right? They don't have to charge their brokerage fee and agent fee. They sell them themselves. So that's already at 2.5%, 3%. Depends how you're going to negotiate at the top, right? That's a lot of money. You're selling it for 300 grand. You got 3% off. That's $9,000 right back into the pot, right? These guys, if they are brokers, they usually have cash, or they have lines of credit, or they have loans, and usually they have investors, right? Because they work with those people. So they can say, look, we can get cash from this guy for 10%. I'm going to waive my real estate fees. You're going to carry the construction at the cost, right? I'm going to bring that in. We're going to take the 10% off the top, split 50-50.
On the back end. Like that. Yeah. What's some of those phantom costs you talked about?
Which cost?
Phantom. You said you get.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's some examples, line items that's phantom costs?
So a lot of phantom costs that people don't take into consideration is, and especially on the front, they will surface, okay? They will come on the backside, but on the front side, carrying costs. Even me, and I'm not going to make myself that big, okay? But I'm just saying, even me, I sometimes underestimate how long the property is going to take to renovate, or how long it's going to sit on the market, right? This is based on pro forma. I have to look at the historical path of it, but it's so difficult to do because property is one is different from property two and so forth. And there is a time challenge of the market, right? Like the market changes all the time. So you may factor in 3 months on sitting on the market after you renovate it for the carrying cost, it makes it 6, right? That's your phantom cost that you have to be able to put some contingency somewhere so you can recoup it. Also contingency of construction. That's where the profit bleeds come in, right? Like you factoring 100 grand and it costs you 127, right? Because you didn't think about unforeseen conditions and you went and had a pipes to replace on this slab, or you got a slab differential and now you have to fix it. Like there's a lot of different items, right? Staff costs, your own personal time, right? Look, if I'm doing it, I better get paid. I'm not doing it for Red Cross. I love people. I want to deliver the best house, but I still want to get paid. Okay. So with that being said, I will need to factor in how much of my time is going to go into it, right? So if I'm putting a project manager, let's say we're putting a project manager, right? That's a fixed cost. You're going to know, okay, it's 7 months of construction. You're putting and split them across multiple projects, and you take a percentage of their time and allocate it to this project. How much of my time is going to go into it, right? But if I'm spending 10 hours a week, that means my 10 hours doesn't go to something else that can generate profit. So I need to make sure that my time is valued as well.
Yeah.
I would not suggest doing it right off the bat.
Yeah. I like that. So on the scale side, right now you have a deal flow problem, but when you scale, I know sometimes you can have a labor problem. How do you guys manage that when you have too many projects, not enough labormen? What's your technique to get bodies on those jobs to keep the machine rolling?
So that's a great question, and that's where the good project management comes in, right? So you need to figure it out, your timelines across multiple projects, and overlay your schedules, to figure it out. How can you maximize your workforce, right? So I can go and hire 5 different drywall contractors, but that's not what I want to do. I want to have one, because now I'm giving him a power of making a lot of money, right? They do it. You're going to have 5 houses from me, right? You're going to get $15,000 per house. It's a lot of money for labor, right? So that's where I can negotiate my prices with those guys and maintain equality. Because if I got 5 subcontractors on the drywall, I know contractor 1 because he worked with me. Contractor 2, yeah, they work with me here and there. Contractor 3, that's like a substitute, right? Like a substitute bench in a football game, right? Like, okay, you come in if I'm out of options, right? And then you go to 4 and 5. You don't know these guys. Like, you have no clue. You're just filling in the trade because you have to, the time, right? These guys may or may not show up on the job site. They may butcher your drywall, and now you're like, oh, dude, you got to fix it. I don't want to fix it. I charge you for drywall to install, and I didn't say it's going to look good. What are you talking about, man? I expect it to look good, right? Strong contract, right? You have to have a strong contract with them because that has to be stipulated. For everything in construction, you're going to have a case studies, right? So, and not only this, you're going to have some sort of association of hardwood floors industry and blah, 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 blah. You can pull out their minimum standards and it's gonna tell you, okay, from 5 feet, I should see no imperfection on the drywall.
Mhm.
Instead, you take a tape measure and you measure it 5 feet, right?
Yeah.
You look at it, yeah, it looks good. I don't see anything, right?
Mhm.
Or you look at 5 feet, like, dude, I see a screw right there. Like, you didn't even float the screw,
Mhm.
right? So you can put that in a contract to protect yourself, right?
What are those called? I know it's like level 1, level 2 with
Uh-huh.
drywall and paint. What are those called?
So you got level 4, level 5, and then you have textures, right? You get orange peel and knockdowns. And
No, that classification. So how do you reference that? Is that RS means what?
So yes, you can go to like a National Institute for Drywall Industry, I think
Okay.
it's called, and it's gonna give you a classification. So like level 3 is literally you just float it and it looks like shit, right?
Yeah.
So you don't leave it, okay? Then you go to level 4 and it has to be all floated and sanded, and it has to look presentable on the joint tape, but you don't coat the whole entire sheet of sheetrock.
Mhm.
You just prime it and paint it. Once you look at it from the angle, you guys definitely seen it. You see a nice line where the flow was, right? Because somebody used the cheap paint,
Yeah.
right? And then you go level 5 to where you coat the whole entire surface. Now that's the most expensive. That's when you go very high-end finishes. The best way for you guys to generally speaking is orange peel, right? You go level 4 and you just spray orange peel. So when you go from that angle, the little bit of orange peel texture is gonna give an eye a little bit of distortion, so to speak, and this way you're not gonna see the imperfection, but still use a good paint. Because you'll see imperfection.
Yeah. So you're saying at scale, the best way to manage those workforces is good contracts, first of all, and then finding that one all-star person that you could feed multiple houses to.
And look, you're gonna go through some bad ones, right? That's you gotta learn on your own mistakes. I always been saying that, school of life from a conventional school is different, right? In school, you get the books, you get to learn, then you go get grade on the test, right?
Mhm.
In life, you get a grade first and then you learn it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different dynamic, but you will make mistakes and you're gonna have to fight with those guys, right? Just don't give in. Like if you messed up, I don't care. Like seriously, you gotta fix it.
Mhm.
And if you go across and you ask about my name, it's like two pools of different people: the ones that love me and the ones that absolutely hate my guys. Okay, because I will not let go. It's like if something is wrong, you're not, or if you're leaving, getting somebody else to fix it. That's
And you're
bottom
not getting
line.
paid. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, look, it's your property, right? It's your house. You delivering for the client. The person that's gonna buy it from you has to be proud of their house. You don't want a buyer's remorse. You don't want somebody to buy your house. Oh my God, that's so awesome. I get this beautiful master bathroom. You start taking a shower and the water comes up and floods the bathroom because somebody plugged the freaking waistline with the drywall compound, right? So it's protecting the entrance.
Yeah. And how you manage callbacks on projects? So after you sold it, what how you manage
12
callback?
months, 12 months worth.
12 months. Yep.
We like to deliver a project that people can be proud of,
Mhm.
right? So that's part of the change what we're doing right now. Like we're going from the smaller end of homes today's market to the larger, more expensive homes because there has to be an ample amount of profit for us to maintain the 12 months warranty,
Mhm.
right? Comes out of pocket,
Yeah.
which I'm fine with, as long as somebody didn't stuff something that will drain.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the rental side. So we ran through the numbers on the flips. So how do you analyze your rental properties right now to make sure that they cash flow and they're worth having?
So two different scenarios, right? You can look at the cash flow and you bank on the cash flow, or you can look at equity, right? So it depends which way you look at it. When I started buying my first rentals, I always look at the cash flow. That was my number one thing, right? I want to have a income generated while I sleep, right? It's good. However, you're ending up with a class C or even B properties, huge turnover, a lot of deterioration to your property, and then you have to do a make readies, and it's like never ending turnover, right? So yes, you will get a cash flow out of it. But I changed a little bit to more of the equity. Now I'm in a better position, so I can do both, right? Like you can underwrite the properties for the cash flow and equity. So that's what we started doing. The way I'm analyzing those, number one, today is I start with the insurances, right? Like what is my insurance? Flood and dwelling. I want those two numbers right away because that's my first indicator, right? That's gonna be either kill the deal right away, or then I can start to the phase 2 of actually underwriting construction, right? So again, when I'm looking at it, it's like I want maintenance free. I don't want deferred maintenance because that's a killer. If you guys self-managing the properties, 11 o'clock at night, hey, my toilet is leaking and I'm flooding your property. Like,
Yeah.
right. You don't want that. So you want to get rid of all the deferred maintenance, electrical, mechanical, plumbing issues that all needs to be solved. Roof, right? Especially for the insurance purposes, you want to put a new roof on it so you don't have to worry about it for 10 years. Make sure you don't have any window leaks and so forth. So I'm just breaking it down by construction again, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm taking it down. It's like, what it's going to take for me to do it. Now, the beauty of cash flowing properties on a even B minus class, they don't have to look super, right? Like you're not looking for level 5 drywall. You're not looking for all wood. I don't know, like whatever cabinets you want to pick right now, right? It's got to be presentable. It's got to be clean. Nothing goofy in it. Like it's got to be nice square rooms, per size, with a closet. Everything has to work. Make sure you got a door stops, not the basement mounted, wall mounted, because they will break and you're gonna have a hole in the wall. So you start breaking it down. Once the construction lines up with your insurances, right now you're looking at that acquisition price versus your approximate resale value if you want to flip it, or you're going to look at the cash flow, right? So if you're fetching it, $2,600 a month of the double, let's say, right? And you're gonna have to look at, okay, that's what it is. It's $31,000 a year, right? Then I'm starting to subtracting. I'm working on a separate sheet. I'm starting to subtract. Okay, what is my management cost? What is my insurance? Right? And I'm arriving at a net number. So that net number that I'm gonna arrive at, it's better be more than my note, right? So that's pretty much how you do it.
Yeah. What tools you using this you doing this on the back of the truck, on the back of a napkin, or Excel, or what tools you using to do these calculations?
So I don't remember which book I read it in, but one of the books said if your business plan is so complicated that you cannot write on a napkin, it's a shit business plan. So, yeah. So napkin, no,
Have it?
Excel.
Okay.
I developed my own spreadsheets and they are very simple and just keep it that way. Just make sure you have all the entries, right? Like don't skip stuff because a lot of times unintentionally, you're just going to forget about 1 or 2 line items and that's a problem.
Yeah. And management, what does management look like? You self-managing or you still got it with?
We don't manage. Well, we manage about 17, 19 units in house, but one of them is 16 plex. So it's a one property. And then all the class A properties we manage.
Yeah. What's your opinion on the market right now? So you've been through a couple of different cycles. So all the way from Florida, then you went through Katrina, then 07, 08. Now here we are, 2023 in this insurance debacle. What's your opinion and how you feel about buying?
I would buy every property I can that I can balance the budgets right now. Because if you can balance budgets today, it's only going to get better, right? Like it's not sustainable, the state of Louisiana, to have insurances that high. So as long as you can balance the budgets today, you're going to few different elements, right? Across the time, you're going to pay down the debt because that's just the nature of the debt, right? The longer it takes, the more money you're going to make. And then hopefully your insurances will start to creep down. So that's another layer of you increasing your cash flow, right? And then the equity grow along with it. Because I can tell you that if the property insurance goes down, the property equity is going to go up. So you got 3 different streams of revenue in addition to your regular cash flow. So if I can balance the budget right now today on anything that breaks even, I'm buying it. Because I know in 12, 14, 16, 18, 24 months, it's all going to start to.
Tell me a little bit more about what you mean by balancing the budget. So using those same metrics that you talked about. So if it's a rental property, you're still looking at that gross 31,000 a year, and you are breaking even using which numbers? Just your debt?
So
which numbers?
I'll put it, okay, this is on the left side, I'm going to have, on the one side, I'm going to have my gross revenue, and then I'm going to put all my expenses, right? Whatever that is on an annual basis. Lawn care, if I have one, water, if it's a single meter, maintenance, right? That's a historical data percentage based. You're going to put your insurances, you're going to put the management, you're going to put your mortgage and everything else. And as long as these 2 numbers are equal, I'm fine with it. Now the banks are not, because your debt service coverage ratio, they want to look 1 to 1 to 2, I think right now, right? So you got to get that 20% somewhere.
That's good. Yeah, I agree. And what about on the project management side? So we have people in the room that are managing one project. We got people in the room that's managing 10. What tools do you guys use right now to project manage that's been working for you?
So we use Builder Trend. That's the software that we use for construction
Seen
companies.
Builder Trend.
Yeah, this is a very well-developed software that is very easy to use and extremely intuitive. So subcontractors can use it, homeowners can use it. In my personal instance, property managers can use it, and you as an owner, it's very easy. So that's what I would recommend. There's some other softwares that you can use. Upfolio is one of those softwares if you're managing properties, but we don't use those because we don't manage, so we don't have a use.
Right. So what advice does 2023 Machi give the Orlando Machi, everything that you know now? What advice do you give to him?
So it's funny that you ask because I think about it every day, right? I'm always seeking like what I would do differently if I would be again 20-some-year-old and I would be restarting. And I wouldn't do many things differently. I would just seek to make more mistakes quicker. So I would, because we being conditioned as human beings, do not make any mistakes, right? They teach you that from little baby, right?
Yeah.
Don't do this, don't do that, don't need good grades at school. Like everything has to be perfect. I would venture to say, F it up as quick as you can. F it up as quick as you can, because you're gonna learn so much quicker, and your recovery time is so much greater. Like the time horizon. Like when you're 20, from 20 to 25, I mean, you probably have no kids, maybe, right?
Yeah.
You probably have no wife,
Maybe.
right? You have no responsibilities. You can sleep on the couch at friend's house. Like, what is the worst that's gonna happen, right? To make those mistakes, don't seek to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Try to do good, but if something happens, just let it go. Learn from it, absorb it in your own little personal arsenal of wealth, of knowledge, right? And just reapply it, redeploy it in a different fashion, right? Like, this is what I did. I better not do it again, and just keep building on that. I was no different. I was conditioned the same way. Don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake, right? I very quickly learned that it's impossible. If you want to scale, if you want to grow, if you want to make money and build something, forget about the money. If you want to build something that is greater than you, like if you have aspiration to build something that's meaningful, that you can pass along to your kids or be proud of it as a family member, whatever drives you, right?
Yeah.
You gotta do it. You gotta look at a big picture. Like you have to look at from when I'm 70 and I'm gonna be on my death. Well, hopefully not 70, but and hopefully not on a deathbed. But when I'm almost there, I don't
Right.
want to be like, dude, I regret because in this year I didn't do this and this. Nah, I don't want that.
Right.
I prefer to die poor,
Yeah.
like somewhere on the beach with a cigar,
Yeah.
with nothing.
Right. So tell us, that's a good point. So what does work-life balance look like? So I'm pretty sure in that big picture, family is involved. So right now with so much construction company, real estate, trying to grow as big as possible, how do you manage that dilemma of being home or chasing, the next big thing? How will work-life balance look like?
So from sitting right here as a 41-year-old, I can tell you that right now I have a very good work-life balance because I have a great team members. And we started investing in human resources, as bad as it sounds, right? Like, I mean, we started seeking a quality of health that we pay for. I mean, it's not cheap and we don't want it cheap, right? I want a value. So we started investing in a human resources that help to alleviate some of that me bottlenecking everything, right? Now, when I was 20 until I was 30, I worked 16 hours a day. A lot of times 7 days. Again, live on a couch, my own couch, but still, right? Like, come home, and wake up and do it again, right? Well, what that helped is to build the nest egg, right? Like I work hard, so I'm never going to take that away. And I would always recommend somebody to do that just for the simple reason of testing themselves, right? If I'm going to go and like, okay, I wake up at 7, I work till 5. Okay, it's a work-life balance. So that's it. I'm done for today. Not checking my email. Tomorrow's 27 emails in the morning. I get to 13, 5, work-life balance. Next day is 39. I get back. It kind of creeps up on you, and now you're chasing your own tail. There is no one more in that scenario, right? Like you're just keeping up. So testing your own boundaries and testing your own mind, and so okay, I can do it. Right? 16 hours, you're tired, you just don't want to do it. And like, you're talking to yourself in your head, everybody got two voices. One of us like, you can just go home. It's okay. Like, shut up. You can do this. You can do it, man. You can do this. Like if you cannot do it, nobody else can, right? So this type of drive, my family suffered though. When I was a younger family man, I got married when I was 27, and until I was probably my kid was born in 2014, so that's what 7 years ago, right? First 3 years, I can tell you when I have my aha moment when my mom came from Poland and she was with my kid. He was 3, and they were talking, and my mom told me that later. And my mom said, "Look, you gotta start thinking different." I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you know what Alex told me today in the morning?
Mm.
He's like, well, I'm not gonna see that today because he's always coming back after I come home, right? I'm like, oh shit.
Mm.
I didn't even notice. Like I was doing so much, and I was so wrapped up into my own little world.
Yeah.
Not, I wasn't neglecting them, right? Like I was never a mean or angry or always. When I was there, I'm there. Like the phone goes to the side, I'm there.
Mm.
But that's coming out from a 3-year-old, and that's his perception. That is not there because it's nighttime, and that is not there during the weekday. Man, that's not sustainable for family because he's gonna be from 3 to 13 like that,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna miss all of it, right? So that was a aha moment. I was like, no, I can't do that. And that's when we starting shifting things around and spending more money into human resources to take away from stuff that it's not about profit. Well, it is about profit, but it's
Yeah.
not only about the profit, right? So you kind of gotta scale, redeploy that money, hope for the best, make some mistakes, learn from them, readjust, rebuild, do it again, and keep leveling up, right? And it's just up to you when you want to stop, when you want to feel that you want to stop. Now, my suggestion is don't stop because once you feel you're there, this is like being on top of the game in sports, right? You got this killer quarterback and he's throwing every ball, and the next year he comes back and he's nobody, right? Like he cannot complete the pass. To get there is easy. To stay there, it's way more difficult. It's way more challenging, and you have to deal with completely different set of circumstances on a daily basis that they are like unknown, uncharted territories, right? Like you kind of get thrown the shit at you and like, oh, holy crap, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right. So you got Google.
Yeah.
What Google says. I covered that 5 years ago. This is nothing, right? So you have to figure it out.
Right. I'm glad you used the word sustainable. I don't know if you remember this, but you told me a while back, or you told somebody else who I talked to that when you were purchasing properties so cheap, the guys that are buying right now, they won't be around in 10 years. 10 years later, you still here, they're not. So what's your formula for sustainability?
The being disciplined, right? Because a lot of times, and I can tell you, I see it time and time and time and time and time again. What your highest and the best, right?
Yeah.
So my highest is the best. And I will walk away from 27 properties before I buy one, right? The discipline to be this way, it's very, very difficult, right? Because you're like, man, I'm losing every single deal. I cannot put anything together. Now you're starting to doubt yourself, right? Like, am I even cut out for this, right? And 6 months goes by and like I still didn't buy any, right? The beauty of life and universe is like the more you put out, the more you reap. So but it's not like I work today and tomorrow comes in, right? Like you can't take 6 months and then you got 1, 2, 3, right? So you never know. So being disciplined and underwriting those deals effectively and be diligent about it is the way to go. And not overpaying for them, because the only one thing that will suffer on the backside of any deal that is purchased too expensively is going to be your finishes, right? Cost of goods is cost of goods. Drywall cost with drywall cost. Plumbing cost with plumbing cost. The labor. And you're gonna have a subpar drywall. Will come in. Not a big fan, right? That's your reputation. Reputation, once you damage it, it's so hard to win. So that's the recipe, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's what worked for me.
Yeah. And we're about to take audience questions as we wrap up. When you talk about those finishes, the punch list is like the last 5% of the project is always the most difficult. So how do you stay on top of your team to make sure that that's not the most difficult part for your projects, and that those punch list items like look good?
Right. So the last 5% takes 30% of the time, right? That's usually what happens, because you want to fine tune everything, and it's like your painter is frustrated if he has to come back the seventh time this week because you still have some stuff that hasn't been finished, even though they have the list, right? So I like to punch the trades as I go, right? So we have a checklist for each trade, and as we go through a plumbing, electrical, whatever the schedule of trades is, we punch it out as we go. So if I see or project manager sees something, so at least what I do, right? I visit the job site weekly, so I go once a week. I read the daily logs from the project managers. I review their pictures. They have their guidelines how each daily log has to be constructed, so it's really easy to navigate and it's consistently the same. But then when I show up with a fresh set of eyes, I'll pick on stuff that they haven't seen because they've been looking at it so frequently and daily that they just missed it, right? So that's why I look at it, and then on the end of it, and then we correct it, and then towards the end of the trade, like about 90% before the crew leaves. That's the key, right? Like you want to capture them at about 90% because once you want to make them come back, it's not that easy, right?
Yeah.
So you want to capture them at about 90% and you literally create the punch list, right? Like you go through a checklist, they're done.
But you let the crew make the punch list themselves or the project manager?
Project manager or
Okay.
myself, depending what it is. Now
Okay.
I get involved in the flips and specs. I get involved more just because it's more up to me. I'm a homeowner, so to
Right.
speak, right? Like it's got to be my product. So I'm more involved in those on those little details. But nevertheless, this just got to be done, and I will make people come back as many times as they have to complete it. And that's how you weed out the bad contractors, right?
Yeah.
And look, guys, cheap is not good. As purely as I can put it, like it's cheap is not good, right? You want it cheap, it's not gonna be good. You want it good, it's not gonna be cheap. So it's that's the way to go. That's why a lot of those deals don't work.
Yeah. So last question, if we take the entire portfolio that we have right now and we gave you $1 million and you had to start all over, what you doing first?
Flips,
Flips.
cash, right? Like you want cash, pillow, put it in there, right? Now you're gonna pay taxes on it, right? So you're gonna have to find some vehicles, 1031s or cost segregations if you're gonna keep something to alleviate some of the tax burden, because you want to keep as much as you can of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would start with that because that's when you're gonna create some cash flow, right? So if you're gonna go to the bank and you have a nice nest egg of cash, wherever it came from, preferably construction or some sort of flip that you did on your own, because now you got a portfolio and something to show. This is what you do. And look, if you got to do some work yourself to offset the numbers and actually generate bigger profit margin, do it, right? Just don't, my personal suggestion and opinion, don't just go and spend it, right? People like, oh yeah, I made 50 grand on the deal. Now I got a Rolex and I got a new car, right? Like, oh, there the money went, right?
Yeah.
Now you're looking for another one. That's unsustainable, right? That's when the guys go wrong, and that's where people cannot build a business around it. They just keep doing one deal at a time.
Yeah.
And it's more difficult. And from my standpoint of view, if I'm buying deals from you all the time, you're gonna look at me and say, the dude always closes, never an issue, never walks away. Like there is another layer of reputation that you're building, and it's a people business, right? Like if I don't know you, I'm not here, and I'm gonna get to know a lot of you now.
Yeah.
So it's people bring deals to me, I evaluate them, and I always break it down. Like Steven also, like I'll break it down. Like I'm sure you know.
Yeah, you done
Is
it.
that your highest the best? Yes,
Yeah.
no, this is my offer, and there's nothing. Like this is like a one line item. Like, dude, show me your work. Like,
Yeah.
where's the work? How did you even arrive at this number?
Right.
I'll break it down. Like, this is my cost of construction. This is the carrying cost. Those are the insurances. This is my gross margin. This is the ARV, and this is my profit. I don't care if you know how much I make. I don't care if you know if I know how much you make. Dude, if you make $20,000 on your assignment contract, good for you.
Yeah.
As long as I'm getting a fair deal, right? That's all I want.
That's good.
That's got to be win-win.
Yep. Audience questions. Steve.
Machi, I wanted you to bring a little bit on your perspective because you're coming from Poland, right? So I'm assuming you got the tail end of communism when you were a young child and all this coming out of that. Is that right? And I just wanted to get your opinion on that coming from the mindset of Poland, what that was like, and how you saw America as people did other people.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I was a kid, we're not communism per se, it was a socialist country. So until age of 8, 9, that was very socialist. So my dad, he was a very savvy guy, and he would go to Germany and he would work over there. He would bring goods, right? Whether were brought legally or not, that's we'll leave it out of the conversation. Okay, he would resell some of those, TVs, VCRs, whatever. So he was naturally a savvy dude. I've been around it, and the negotiating skills I learned from him by buying and selling cars. He was a big car guy, so he was always buying and selling cars. Like, I remember we had cars like every 6 months with a new car, right? And that's my love for cars, where that came from. And I remember going to like a Poland, at least, to have like a big gathering, like a flea market, but it's all cars, right? So you go to individual owners and you look at their cars, they force spin, you start negotiating those deals, right? So I was like a little bit chef head with him, right? And I remember sitting in the bag and I was like, man, that's cool. And then she showed me, so there's, yes, there's a very much so a good aspect of seeing or maybe not having ability to buy whatever you want and being more creative how to achieve it. What's up, dude? Yeah, man.
So look, my question is this. What's your take on building to rent? And it's gonna be multi-layered. So my question is, what's your take on building to rent? And if you were pro doing that, what areas would you focus on to make it make sense? Specifically like New Orleans, if you were gonna do such a thing.
So number one, thank you for your question. But too good to see you.
You well, bro.
Bought some deals from you, so that's good. Build to rent. Look, it's a tough one, especially in the city of New Orleans, because you have to build big enough to have a proportional scale so you can negotiate the prices, right? New Orleans, I can tell you this on my experience, even between South Shore and North Shore, prices are different. Labor cost is cheaper on North Shore and quality is better than it is on South Shore. These guys will not travel here, right? They will stay over there. So in the city of New Orleans, we don't have the land. So you have to build a 200 unit building, so multiple buildings in order to offset your numbers and bank for your equity growth over time, right? Because it's going to be really difficult to balance your budget and income approach in order to do it. These deals, you can syndicate them, and yes, there is a ways of doing it. But what I notice is in a very up-and-coming markets where they are not saturated, right? We are hugely saturated. We've got a lot of properties, right? Like, we don't have a housing problem, at least not that I understand, but we are short on rental units, right? North Shore, however, I would say that would be more geographically viable to look into. I don't know how the numbers stack up. I look at the plot of land right of in Canada, right of Chateau and Joyeni, long strip of land. They were like $1.5 million for it, which to me it looked like on the surface. I looked at it, I was like, man, that's a good deal. And it was like it stretched all the way from pretty much all the way from Chateau to almost Lyons. Like it's massive. Like, yeah, I looked at it on the survey and you can stick 350 units on it, right? But you're facing fourplexes. That's your biggest competitor, right? That's already a problem. You can't gate it. So you can do a high-end rentals. So that's number one problem. So you're going to be competing against $700 a month units. They are not very good to look at. So you're kind of not attracting the right clients in order for that to be financially viable. So we passed on that deal, even though at some point I think the owner was open to owner financing. That's not the way that we do utilize. If you look at something to build, they can carry the lens for you. That would be probably the way of going about it. Hey man, you can always text me. Thank you, guys.